Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. And today, we're being joined by Patick Fitzgibbons, author of Evolve. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Hey, Paul. Thank you for having me, brother. It's an honor.
We're thrilled to have you. Are you ready to begin?
I'm ready. Go ahead.
All right. Question number one. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
Keep going. Don't quit. I know it's hard work, but you gotta keep at it. I know when I was writing my book, and I'm sure we'll get into it, there was a tendency for me to say, you know what, screw this. But you got to keep going forward, and it's not that bad. Just keep at it.
Yeah, just keep pushing, right?
Yeah, just keep pushing.
Well, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Now, for me, it was just the editing process. I mean, I know it's a pain, and I was, I'm kind of, one of those people, I want it done right now kind of thing. And I remember I would send it off to my publisher, and then it was a good thing. Look, editing is a great thing. We all don't want to, we want to come across in the best light. So for me, that was the hardest part of getting it kicked back from the editor saying you need to change this, you need to make these corrections. And it seemed like it took forever, but it was well worth it.
Yeah, I definitely feel that the hardest part is the editing, that proofreading. Yeah. I'll give you an example. We're actually, our newest client, we onboarded him Monday, and my editor, it's probably the biggest book we have done. It's 102,000 words, so it's quite a big manuscript. Our philosophy typically is between 20 and 30,000 is ideal, but this is a huge manuscript. And my editor's like, I can't do this in our usual 15-day timeline. I'm like, I totally get it. We want it done. We want it done right. So how long do you need? And she goes, probably the end of April. I said, no problem. I emailed the client to let her know, hey, this is a massive manuscript. It's going to take till this time because we want it done right. And as long as you lay it out like that, it's very clear, because the editing, by far, it is the toughest part, because no book is perfect. I mean, there are books out there that have been published by traditional Big Five publishers. There's mistakes in them. You could go through 3 or 4 editors. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. And to me, that is the most frustrating part, is the editing and proofing, because it can make you go cross-eyed real quick.
Yeah, I agree. And it's just one of those things that you got to go through, but it's very important.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's talk about marketing. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that has worked well.
Well, we talked about it a little off the air, Paul. I have a podcast, as obviously you do. I have a criminal justice podcast, and I really used that to do a lot of my marketing. I'm big on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. So I really leveraged that. Before I even published the book, I was talking about my book. I was saying, look, it's coming, giving people a due date and when it dropped. And that was my biggest marketing strategy, is just leveraging my contacts, mainly through my podcast and the following I have through my show. And it really, really panned out well.
So what was your communication strategy, and when did you start it?
I started it a couple months before I even when my book was still with the editor back and forth. I would post all the time on LinkedIn. Primarily, I'm big on LinkedIn, and advertise and mention my book on my podcast. I push out about 3 podcasts a week. So I was generating the momentum. I was generating the hype with my listeners. So once it hit, they were ready to go. And so they were asking me, they were sending me information about how to get the book. So that really worked for me. So that was my strategy. I mean, I already had, and I knew that going in, I already had the people lined up. I already had my following. When I leveraged my following through my podcast to really do a lot of the marketing for me, and it really worked.
Did you also use call to actions in the intro and outro, or even in the middle?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean, those are huge. So I would recommend if people have the ability to do that, then use that.
Absolutely. I think I heard on one podcast, they rotated about 6 to 8 different calls to actions throughout, and had a different one per episode.
Yeah, calls to actions are huge, and so many people are afraid to do that. But you got to do that to get generate the excitement, especially when you're writing a book.
Definitely. And then with your show, was your business the sponsor? Was the book the sponsor? How did you leverage it during that time?
Well, the book, I have other sponsors for the show,
Yeah.
but again, I just leverage it. Before it even got there, I was just mentioning it, getting the momentum rolling, and I had people reaching out to me social all the time saying, "Hey, when's the book going to drop? When am I going to be able to get the book? Where am I going to get the book?" I wasn't through Amazon or anything like that. I had it on. I was my own distributor, so I was learning as I went along. I thought Amazon took a big cut, but yeah, I did it on my own. It was a learning process.
So how did you do distribution? Were you selling them on your website? Were you going through some of the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
distributors? What were you doing?
I was selling it through my website.
And was it the Kindle and the paperback?
No, it's a paperback and an ebook that you can see on my website, CJ Evolution.
Got it. And then how were you doing to ship it on those? Are you shipping them yourselves? Did you have another company?
Yeah, I was shipping them myself. I'm sorry. So a lot of work on my end, but I'm retired, buddy, so I have the time.
Nice. So basically, you were your own distribution model.
Exactly. Exactly. So my next book, we talked a little bit about it, Paul. I'm probably going to do it a little bit differently, but it was definitely a learning process.
Got it. So would you recommend to aspiring authors out there that they also do it themselves, or what are your thoughts in regards to the distribution aspect?
I think if you do it yourself, you definitely you get to learn all the back end, and you get to learn from the things you're doing right, obviously, and the things you're doing wrong. It's really up to you. I mean, there's so many different. You can publish it yourself. As far as distribution, you can use Amazon, other things. It's really what people want. I liked doing that myself because I liked learning all about it. So it's really up to the individual on what they want to do. I mean, obviously, if you use Amazon or something like that, you get more. You're getting more eyes on it. But I decided to do my own thing, and I don't regret it.
Well, another thing too, for each of your sales, you're getting their email addresses, so you're already getting their contact information, so you can market with them directly.
Exactly, and that was a big thing. Is I'm capturing all that information, so and then I send out newsletters and things like that. So it's good.
Were you also selling anything on the back end with the book?
I was doing my coaching. My great question. I have my Evolve coaching that I do for first responders and criminal justice professionals. So yes, I was selling my coaching, and I have a lot of clients out there. So it was a good segue into it.
Excellent. And they were for first responders and who else?
Just criminal justice professionals. I spent 23 years in law enforcement, recently retired last year. And I get a lot of law enforcement coming to me saying, "Hey, I'm looking to transition. I just need some career advice and things like that." And it evolved into my coaching. So hence the name.
Being a great model. And the thing is, you know your target market, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of books, I'd like to know what is your favorite book and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
It's great. I mean, I read this question, and I have so many favorite books out there, but I recently read Grant Cardone, if you know who that is, and it's a book called 10X. And I love that book. And the one thing I learned about it is very simply is you got to keep going, never give up. If everything you want is on the other side of fear, and that's really the premise behind the book. If you've read it, and your listeners have, if they don't, I would highly recommend it. But the whole premise is 10xing everything. So if you want more success, 10x it. Do 10 times more. And that really resonated with me. So I really like the book and really recommend it.
It's funny you mentioned that quote, everything you want on the other side of fear. I remember seeing a video of Will Smith on it, and he used a variation of that quote, and he was doing skydiving, I think it was Abu Dhabi. And he talked about that quote and showed that video of him actually doing that skydive. So, it's an awesome quote.
Yeah.
Which, of course, then transitions into our final question, and that is, what is your favorite quote and why?
A great segue. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, and that's from FDR. Maybe your listeners probably know that. But I love that because it really is. I think fear stifles so many people out there, Paul. Whether you're writing a book, whether you want to start a business, whatever. I think so many people out there, because I talk to a lot of people, as do you, when it comes to fear, they're so fearful of what are people going to think. Well, I'm not going to do that because I don't want people to say things, criticize me or whatever. And I had some of that before I wrote my book. People were like, well, what are you doing? I mean, you can't write a book. You're just an ex-cop. And I could have done one or two things. I could have let that thing, that kind of criticism, stifle me. But I said, you know what? I'm going forward. So I really love that quote because I think it's applicable to so much of what we don't do that we want to do in life, if that makes sense. I think you got to get over your fears, man. Everything, like I said, everything you want is on the other side.
Well, and the worst question you could ever ask yourself is, what if?
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's the worst thing.
Yeah, I mean, Well, and I had a guy on my show, really quick, if I could mention,
Sure.
it was last year, and he went around and he did these deathbed confessions. I know that sounds gruesome, and it is, but he was talking to all these people that lived a full life, and the number one topic, the number one thing that they came up with is, you want to take a guess?
Regret.
Regret, fear. They
Yeah.
were so wrapped up in what people were going to think. And I say, you know what? Do your own thing, man. If you want to write a book, do it. Because so many people talk about doing stuff, but they don't. They let fear grip them. So I love it.
Yeah, that was with my own journey 9 years ago. I had a really bad health crisis, and doctors said if I don't get my act together, I'm dead in 5 years. Long story short, fixed my life, lost the weight I needed to lose, and that inspired me to write that first book. But of course, what happened? It took me 4 years because I didn't know how to do it. Finally got the book out, and it just completely changed my life to the point where 3 years ago, I actually retired from teaching to focus on being a publisher full time. And the thing is, what if I never would have done that book? Well, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Exactly. Like I said, everything you want is on the other side.
Absolutely. Well, Patick, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way
Appreciate
for
it.
people to find you online?
Best way is cjevolution.com. That's my website, has all my podcasts, has all my social stuff, has my teaching, or coaching. You get a free ebook if you, go to the website, and that's the best way, cjevolution.com.
Patick, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.